Ironwork by Malachi King. Open air, hard steel. Workers sweating and cursing. A black lattice boom crane swings overhead, hoisting an iron beam. And right. Masons shouting, lifting blocks. Other ironworkers shield their eyes from the reflection of hot steel. The July sun beat down. Oppressive. I could imagine myself splattering on the concrete. I swung back and forth with the breeze as I hung by my safety harness underneath an iron beam I had been standing on only a moment earlier. I was the pendulum on a grandfather clock, suspended over a great chasm of space, hovering over a cold slab of concrete 70 feet below my boots. The risk of falling for an ironworker is part of the job, I guess. Not totally unexpected. Ironworkers, as a rule, may fall off the steel at any time. And everyone knows the risks and does it anyway. We were like meth junkies, getting high off the thrill of staring death in his cold, bony face. As I hung there, suspended 7 stories over newly hardened pavement, I waited for someone to rescue me. I felt vulnerable, scared, alone. When I first started the job 6 years before I found myself hanging from the safety harness 70 feet over certain death, I asked an old-timer called Smitty, "What are you supposed to do if you fall?" He squinted his eyes at me and pushed his hard hat far back on his balding scalp so that his tan forehead gleamed in the sun. He coughed and spat generously off to one side and replied, "If you fall, don't bother screaming. You already look stupid." He continued on his way across the shivering steel joist while I clung helplessly to a column. I watched as Loogie sailed through the air and eventually plummet to the ground with an air time of about 5 seconds. Smitty didn't mince words. He had seen many new ironworkers start and then quit a short time later. It was considered a pretty good take if you could keep 10% of your new hires after 2 weeks. Smitty had seen 47 years of hard labor on the iron. He had a constant pained expression with a furrowed brow and a bent back. He spent most of his time on the ground wrapping flexible steel chokers around beams and slipping their ends over the hook of the crane. The crane would raise the beams up, sail them through the air, and bring them neatly within reach of the ironworkers, who were ready to bolt them into place. I was often one of the ironworkers, called connectors, who would receive the beam from the crane, guide it into place, and secure it. I remember, while waiting for a beam, I would enjoy watching Smitty bury his head in the wrinkled blueprints, trying to read the badly faded numbers. If unsuccessful, he would huff and stamp and kick at several beams lying around on the ground. If his foot became injured, his hard hat would be hurled a great distance and everyone on the job would be treated to the grandest and most colorful displays of curses I have ever heard. Smitty frequently warned new ironworkers that they might as well quit because you probably won't make it anyway. And if you do stay, you'll simply fall. Matter of time, really. My fall happened by myself, and I have no one to blame. I was laying smaller pieces of deck about 70 feet up and didn't think I needed help, of course. I did have one thing going for me that day, and it saved my life. Early in the day, I had realized an opportunity to use safety equipment, which was a rare thing. I strapped myself into my harness and tied off to a nearby beam. My harness was connected to a lanyard, a length of strap, which was tied to a beam which saved me from smashing into the bare concrete when the decking went out from beneath my feet. I immediately fell into the space between the beams with no time to catch myself, which was always my backup plan. I felt the glorious tug of my harness straps as they caught me and held me, suspended in space. As I hung there thinking about my good fortune, I looked down between my boots. I could barely make out some building materials scattered over a concrete slab. I was indeed fortunate. My friend Clayton, a new worker, was 20 feet away and was staring at me open-mouthed. His hands fidgeted nervously, and he was in a half-sitting, half-crawling position. His face was confused, shocked. I'd seen guys fall before, and he was still new and had never seen anything like it. His eyes were wide, and his hands gripped the beam with white knuckles like a first-timer on a roller coaster. Clayton had been an easy hire. He needed work, and the job paid well for beginners. I had explained that ironwork was not for everyone, that he would have to be comfortable with heights, sometimes with as little as 2 inches of beam. He quickly nodded his head, grinned wide, and asked when he could start. Now, he just stood there and stared at me. I'm all right, Clayton. Yell down to a mason over there and get a lift up here. I waited and began to slowly twist the other way, around from the breeze that had kicked up.